Tamara, Lou, Jackie, and Jason here, and we're being joined at the desk by a very interesting individual. Bob Riley is here from the Feed Energy Company, and there's a lot of things going on with Bob. He had a chance to just chat with our general manager a little bit, and he impressed the general manager, which is hard to do.
I've never done it myself.
Yeah, so we're still trying to this day.
It's a low bar.
But we need to, first of all, find out about Feed Energy Company. What is that?
Well, we're a collection of agricultural companies. We've got 3 or 4 over there that are under the rubric, I guess, of the Riley Resource Group, and we primarily deal in the ag world. We Feed Energy, the largest of them, feeds an energy ingredient to a lot of livestock in the country. There's about 58 million laying hens in Iowa that roughly lay an egg a day, and we feed a whole bunch of them, millions of them, 30 or 40 million of them.
Wow.
There's 14 million turkeys in Iowa. We provide what we refer to as racing fuel for turkeys. We're in the livestock industry very, very heavily, and do a lot in the whole agricultural arena because of the whole connection between air, water, and soil, feed, food, and fuel, nutrition, health, and wellness. That whole thing is a chain.
It all ties together.
Yeah, and we're an integral link in that chain, and are a responsible link in that chain. You've seen some of the issues where people do the wrong thing, and that gets everybody into trouble. And we like to keep agriculture at a high level of, I guess I'd call it community respect. Make sure that they do the right thing, and so we do the right thing too.
I imagine you have close ties to Iowa State University.
Absolutely. I'm on all kinds of advisory boards and deal with all the commodity groups up there.
And these are, I imagine, additives that have taken years to develop in terms of, you're talking about bringing animals to market sooner and better and bigger.
Well, and these are ingredients, so they're very, very basic, as opposed to additives, which are things you sprinkle on top to kind of enhance things. But these are basic ingredients.
These are the actual. This is the actual product.
Well, an ingredient in a feed ration. Okay. So, for instance, you're going to eat protein, and you're going to eat carbohydrate, and you're going to eat energy. Those are the 3 building blocks, if you will. We supply the energy portion of that. So, all the.
And where's that energy derived from?
Primarily soybean and corn oils that we get. We also get some animal fats from, say, the Tysons or the Hormels of the world. We blend them very scientifically, very carefully into a formula that enhances their immune systems, enhances their growth, enhances all their well-being. So
now you mentioned the laying hens and the turkeys and things like that. Is there anything in the pet food area that you deal with?
We don't do pet food very much. I'm sure some of our material might find its way in there, and we're doing a lot more now with the corn oil that's coming from the ethanol plants.
Okay.
That's a co-product that comes out of there besides the ethanol. And some of that goes back into biodiesel, so it's another fuel, but some of it goes into the feed industry too.
One of the knocks against big agriculture has been its sustainability, and that it's very petroleum intensive, that in terms especially of growing meat, cattle, poultry, it uses a lot of water, uses a lot of resources, and it sounds like you're a guy who thinks a lot about that.
I think a lot about that every day. As I said before, we have this chain of things that go on, and you start with photosynthesis and the air, water, and soil, and that's our building block. And so we have to take care of that very, very carefully for future generations. If we mess around with that and then something goes wrong, then they're not going to be able to do anything in 500 years. There's a book out called Dirt, and it talks about all the civilizations that have gone downhill and gone out of business, if you will, because they've mined their soil too hard and turned it into deserts. So we have to be very careful with our soil. And as you might have read, we've got about 50% of our organic matter is lost. It's been washed down the Mississippi in the last 50 years, and so we've got to really take care of that asset. So as you go through that whole system, air, water, and soil, there are things we can put in place that will keep the soil where it belongs, keep the water where it belongs, where it fell, and from the rain, and then we can utilize it in the crop production. But
is there any way to reclaim what we've lost, or is it gone?
Yeah. If you can get a whole bunch of trucks coming from the dead zone down,
that's about it.
Bring it back. I don't know.
But how important is that with agriculture as a whole, making sure we take care of our environment? How does that relate to agriculture?
Well, I think agriculture is, it's an economic animal for one thing, so it pays attention to signals from the market. But, left unfettered in a lot of capitalistic systems, it'll be a self-interest point of view. And so what we're trying to do is to make sure that everyone has that stewardship concept in their farming. And I'd say, 90% of them do, 80% of them do. But there's that 5 or 10 or 20% that say, look, I'm in business to get a yield and to get some money and put it in my pocket and, buy shoes for the kids. So you can't argue with that, except for the fact that if these unintended consequences of the things that they do are causing problems down the road, and you're not going to see them, immediately, but if they cause problems down the road, we're going to have to figure out how to bring those actions into check and try to make them better so that we have a better system for our kids and grandkids.
We had Bill Stowe on the program Monday, and he was here mainly to talk about fluoride in the water, but he's been in the news lately, and he's very unhappy with the quality of water that's coming down the Raccoon River into Des Moines because of the nitrate levels. And water quality, I grew up in Iowa, so I guess I can lob bombs at it, but the water quality here is terrible, and the rivers really need a lot of help. Is there anything we can do about that?
Oh yeah. I'm on probably way too many boards, and 3 or 4 of them are environmental boards. The Nature Conservancy. I've been on the Iowa Environmental Council board. I've been on the Des Moines Waterworks board for 8 years. So I'm pretty familiar with water quality in Iowa. We have 535 impaired waters that have been designated by the government in the last couple of years, and they do this every 2 years to tell us how good or bad our water is. If you go back to the 1933 government assessment of bad waters in Iowa, they're the same ones.
Really?
Same ones.
Really?
Yeah. So you can take those maps and put them side by side and say, well, what's the difference here? And so we've had these voluntary systems in place for a long, long time, but we've then incorporated into our farming practices things that have these unintended consequences. So when you have these externalities that are not measured and they're not taken into account, then, stuff happens. And what's really happened is we've shifted from a whole lot of different types of crops to, very specific corn and soybeans. We've gone, fence row to fence row. You used to have windrows out there that stopped the soil from moving around. You used to have cover crops. You used to rotate a lot more. We don't do that as much anymore. We use chemicals or we use different practices. So what we have to get to is some of these no-till type things and cover crops and buffer zones and constructed wetlands. We've taken all the wetlands out of Iowa for the most part.
The only time you can see where they were is when we get flooding and you fly over Iowa and you see all the little potholes, where the wetlands
They
used
call
to
them the
be.
prairie potholes, and this is an ecoregion that's really an interesting thing, and it's designated by the federal government, the southern prairie pothole region. It comes all the way down basically towards Coon Rapids and out west there, and it stretches all across northwestern Iowa.
So we're kind of at a critical time, and I imagine in your business you have to look at things like climate change too, because it could affect what we grow here in Iowa and how we grow it.
I'm very interested in that. I'm on the College of Ag and Life Sciences Advisory Board up at Iowa State, and I was concerned a couple of years ago when the guy that's the head of bugs, the entomologist up there, was going to retire, and they said, well, I'm not sure we're going to replace his position. And I've said, geez, we got this climate change going on. We're going to have more bugs in Iowa than we've ever seen before, and they're going to be different ones than we've dealt with. So we need to come up with strategies both to deal with what seems to be this inexorable march of climate change anyway. But we're going to have to figure out how to mitigate that and deal with that and put some strategies in place.
So this is short attention span theater, local television, and if I'm Joe Beercan sitting at home saying, well, that's concerning, well, I'm going to head off to work now and forget about it. What can the average person do about things like this?
Well, as with everything, it's all made up of these very, 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 very small parts. And so whether it's turning the lights off when you leave the room, or it's walking when you could be riding your car, or it's consolidating the stuff that you do to see if you can get a smaller and smaller carbon footprint. Those are the types of things that will help on an overall carbon change. But what will really happen with carbon change will be when we get all the governments in the world lined up and saying, you know, we have to do something about this. And we've been kind of laggards in that, as developing countries have been laggards in that. And so we have to figure out how to all get on the same, same train and go down this track, because if we've got other people doing different things, we're going to offset that. But we have to get some good governmental policies and an energy policy and a climate policy that fits with that. And some of that is, you know, the government will say it'd be a good idea to go to a less carbon-intensive system for transportation, for instance. And so they get us into the ethanol. They kind of do some tax credits and things like that for the ethanol and the biodiesel to have more renewable, more current energy being used, as opposed to the stored energy from the petrochemicals you know, deep down in the soil. So what the government does is gives us incentives to do these, to go in these directions, and they've done that with wind, which I think is a very good thing.
Yeah.
You know, moving towards a hydrogen-based economy. We can do that. We've got some of the smartest people up at Iowa State and University of Iowa and some of these other universities around here that are doing this work, and they need some funding to get those done and to end up with that hydrogen car. That's what we really need, is some government push in that area, because we can't individually make that big of a change on our own, but we can if we do it from a policy standpoint. So I would say to Joe Sixpack, instead of turning off the light so much, call Washington and say, we need an energy policy that makes some sense. We need a climate change that makes some sense. Go to the people that we're electing and say, what's your position on climate change?
Bob Riley is here from Riley Resource Group. Now, you have an open house coming up on Monday, and show the graphic here, let everybody know where this is at. In case you want an idea where that is located, remember the Lakeside Fitness joint over in Pleasant Hill? That's the building. That's where he's at. They used to be the fitness center.
Right.
There. And so you can stop over there. That'll be happening on Monday. For more information, where can people jump online to get more information on that?
They can jump on at www.feedenergy.com, or you know, I'm not sure where else they can find the information.
RileyResourceGroup.com, too. We'll also get you the information that you need. Yeah. Bob, thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome.
Thank
you so much.
2 hours.
No kidding.
Thank you.
4 minutes before 7 o'clock. We'll be right back.